Just a quiet night out with Lena and the usual crowd. Sophia had purred down the phone earlier, her voice clawing with the sweet synthetic perfume I now associated with deceit. She had no idea the curtain was about to rise on her final performance. My grip tightened on the $2,000 in my hand. The crisp new bill still smelling of printer's ink from the ATM. My destination was the Starlight Lounge, the kind of flashy club where privacy was an illusion, easily bought and sold. The lounge lobby was a blinding symphony of gold and chrome, pulsating with a bass line that hammered against my chest. Just inside, a lanky man in a black suit with a "Manager Vince" name tag scurried past. I snagged him by the arm, pulling him into a shadowed alcove where the thrum of the music was a dull echo. My hand moved with practiced ease, stuffing the wad of cash into his inner jacket pocket, a magician's sleight of hand. His expression shifted instantly from startled to questioning, then settled into a greasy understanding. He subconsciously pressed a hand to his pocket. I leaned in. The stale cigarette smoke and cheap cologne clinging to him assaulted my senses. VIP room 888. Get it on the main screen. 10 minutes. You've got 70 minutes worth of my time for this. His Adam's apple bobbed. His eyes darted to the gigantic LED display currently showcasing a bland, bikini-clad music video. $2,000 clearly outweighed his professional ethics. He licked his lips, a forced smile more grotesque than a grimace. Friend, this is a bit risky. Another $500 in cash, and I'll refund you if it doesn't work out. My face remained impassive, my voice as cold as ice. It'll work out, and then you'll get it. He hesitated for less than 3 seconds before nodding, then muttered into his walkie-talkie, his back to me. Success. I clapped him on the shoulder, couldn't tell if it was light or heavy, then turned and walked towards the secluded seating area in the corner of the lobby. My 3 closest friends, Marcus, Jake, and Daniel, were already there. A few token beer bottles stood on the table. Marcus winked at me, practically vibrating with suppressed excitement. Jake, usually detached, grinned, clearly anticipating a spectacle. Only Daniel remained calm, raising his beer glass in a silent salute. I sat down, back ramrod straight, my eyes fixed on the huge screen. Bikini-clad models still posed and preened, pool water shimmering under flashing lights. Each second dragged, a slow blade slicing through my heart. Marcus couldn't help but lean in. Hey, are you sure they're in there? I didn't answer, just stared at the screen, my fingers lightly tapping the cold glass, my heart hammering against my ribs. Suddenly, the screen flickered, a violent jerk, a momentary burst of bright colors and static, then sharpened into crystal-clear focus. The entire lounge seemed to collectively gasp, as if an invisible hand had clamped down on its throat. The background music still played, but the boisterous chatter of the crowd receded, swallowed by the sudden hush. A cascade of amazed, curious, and excited glances converged on the massive screen. It was an inside view of VIP room 888, so sharp I could count the seeds on the fruit platter on the coffee table. Center frame was Sophia, my wife. She was wearing the ivory lace dress I'd spent half a month's salary on, now crumpled and askew around her shoulders. She was practically draped over the other men, her arms locked around his neck like a strangling vine. That man, Ethan, had shed his usual refined banker persona. His normally slick back hair was a rumpled mess, his glasses askew on his nose. One arm was clamped around Sophia's waist, the other pressed to the back of her head. Their bodies fused together like magnets, their lips locked in a desperate, frenzied kiss, as if they intended to devour each other whole. Behind them, a few shadowy figures stood frozen, likely the friends Sophia had mentioned, Lena and the others. Their faces were slack with shock, as if suddenly paralyzed. The table before them was a chaotic mess of discarded snack wrappers and empty beer cans. The lobby fell into an absolute, deathly silence, broken only by the incongruously cheerful background music. A clatter echoed as Marcus's beer bottle slipped from his hand, hitting the carpet with a dull thud. His mouth hung open wide enough to fit a chicken egg. Jake accidentally knocked a bowl of peanuts onto the floor, while Daniel frowned, his eyebrows twisting into a tight knot, his eyes sharp as blades. Innumerable eyes began to drift from the screen, shifting slowly towards our table. Whispers spread like wildfire. Oh my God, this is real drama. Look, that guy must be the husband. Caught red-handed. Talk about making a scene. Who's that girl? She looks good, but she must be blind. The voices, those gazes like fiery daggers, pierced me, but I felt no pain. Instead, a surge of energy shot from my soul to the crown of my head, igniting every vein, boiling my blood, and simultaneously numbing my fingertips as if they were freezing. All the anger, the humiliation, the pain of betrayal, magnified to an extreme by the ultra-clear image on the screen, then compressed by the indifferent crowd around me, solidified into a ticking bomb in my chest, threatening to explode. I sprang to my feet, the chair scraping against the floor, a shrill sound in the suffocating silence. In an instant, every eye was on me. I strode to the reception desk, reaching out and snatching the microphone that controlled the entire sound system from the technician. I took a deep breath, filled with a fierce resolve, and poured every ounce of my being into the words I bellowed into the microphone, unleashing all my humiliation, rage, and a primal desire for destruction. My roar tore through the air, making everyone in the lobby flinch and recoil. The entire sound system seemed to tremble with my shout. Silence. My voice exploded, amplified to maximum volume, echoing through the space, crushing all remaining background music and chatter. The chattering crowd, moments before a buzzing hive, was silenced. The stillness was so profound, I could hear my own ragged breathing echoing in the dead air. I raised my hand, pointing directly at the huge screen, my finger trembling slightly from tension, aimed precisely at the frenzied couple entwined on screen, Sophia and Ethan. This song, my voice was cold, sharp as a knife cutting through the air, is for my wife, Sophia, and the gentleman in the sharp suit from the bank, Mr. Ethan. I practically ground out each word. May you both enjoy your breakup. I screamed the last words, my voice cracking. Immediately, the colossal sound system blared the jarringly cheerful intro to a popular breakup anthem. The familiar melody, now a malicious mockery, filled every corner of the lounge, leaving nowhere to hide. As I finished my pronouncement, 2 servers, as if prepped, simultaneously rushed to VIP room 888 and kicked open the heavy, ornate door with all their might. Crash. The door, a symbol of privacy and illicit pleasure, flew open without mercy. The scene inside was instantly exposed. Dazzling lights flooded in, illuminating faces that were a mix of shock and stark terror. Inside the room, the deafening breakup song mingled with the roar of hundreds of spectators in the lobby like a sonic tidal wave crashing through the splintered door. The music and the noise, an impenetrable, invisible wall carrying icy, blade-sharp sarcasm, slammed into every person in the room. Time seemed to stop. Ethan's expensive dark blue tie, which he'd ripped off in a fit of passion, now hung around his neck like a dead snake. His hand remained on Sophia's waist, frozen in an intimate posture, but his entire body was rigid. His face was ashen, blood drained in an instant, leaving only a cold, corpse-like pallor. His eyes, usually sharp and experienced from behind the bank counter, were now filled with absolute horror and the raw terror of being exposed to the bone. His mouth opened, but no sound escaped. His glasses were completely askew. His pupils dilated with extreme fear behind the lenses. Sophia was even more pathetic. Her entire body trembled violently, emitting a short, sharp gasp like a throttled chicken. Her face, flushed moments ago with passion, was now as white as ash. Her lips trembling, purple, and tragically disfigured. Her arms, which had been wrapped around Ethan's neck, recoiled as if shocked by electricity. She stumbled backward, her legs weak, her high heel twisting, and she fell backward onto the sofa, which was strewn with empty beer cans and fruit peels. She lifted her head, her utterly panicked gaze piercing through the wide-open VIP door, fixing on the giant screen in the lobby, which clearly displayed the scene of her passionate embrace with Ethan, and then her present disheveled state, slumped on the sofa like a skinned animal. Oh! Finally, Sophia let out a mournful shriek, her voice cracking. She clasped her hands over her face, her body curling inward, trembling violently as if she were freezing to death. Her 3 friends in the VIP room were utterly aghast. Lena, in the red dress, gaped so wide you could fit a light bulb in her mouth, her eyes round, her chin almost touching her chest. The blonde friend accidentally dropped her drink with a thump, landing on a scattering bag of chips with a pathetic squish. And the short-haired friend, as if struck by a paralysis spell, stood rooted to the spot, still holding half a slice of watermelon, its juice dripping between her fingers, forming a dark stain on her sequin dress. All 3 of them looked like panicked rabbits, their eyes darting back and forth between the 2 stern-faced servers blocking the door, the gawking crowd outside, the giant screen playing their humiliation, and the collapsed couple on the sofa. Their faces held only shock and primal terror. They had even forgotten how to speak. I stood amidst the clamoring crowd, a faint, wild smile on my face, watching the pale, terrified, and shattered faces in the VIP room, especially Sophia's devastated expression and Ethan's ruined, humiliated posture, the men who had pretended to be a refined banker in front of me. An indescribable euphoria, like molten lava, swept away all my indignation, flowing through my limbs and bones. A profound, chilling satisfaction. It was more gratifying than downing a cold beer on a 37-degree summer day. More satisfying than 10 years of silent humiliation culminating in a single act of vengeance. Their carefully constructed facade, their stolen pleasures, their clandestine affairs behind my back, I had personally crushed it all before hundreds of eyes, under the pounding beat of the breakup song. I had stripped them bare, leaving them utterly ruined. Bro, this is legendary. Marcus was the first to shout, his face flushed red, slamming his hand on the table, making the beer bottles rattle. He waved his arms wildly, spittle flying. This is it. They deserve it. Smash those cheating dogs. Jake said nothing, but his usual devil-may-care expression was now flushed with excitement. He stared intently at the VIP room, his eyes blazing like headlights. He picked up a full beer glass and chugged it down, his Adam's apple working furiously, as if trying to extinguish an internal fire, or perhaps fueling the drama unfolding. Daniel remained the calmest. He just curled his lip into a sharp, knife-like smile. Slowly, he pulled out his phone, unlocked it, and subtly aimed the lens at the open door of VIP room 888, perfectly capturing every wretched moment inside. His finger lightly touched the screen, clearly recording. The surrounding crowd was completely agitated. Happy breakup. Wishing you a happy fall. Someone started, others joining in, singing along to the tune of the blasting song. Despite being off-key and out of sync, their voices were filled with malicious glee. Keep singing. Keep kissing. Why stop now? Oh, isn't that Director Y from X-Bank? He usually looks so proper. Turns out he's a dirty player. What's that girl crying about? She was so eager when she was cheating. Record it, post it to social media. Calls, whistles, the rapid click-click-click of cameras, and bursts of gleeful laughter merged into a gigantic torrent, along with the happy breakup melody, surging towards that small VIP room. It cruelly swept away all remaining space within. The music and the cheers from outside were like a rolling tsunami, submerging everything left in the small VIP room. Sophia's strangled screams had long been crushed by the horrific soundscape, leaving only desperate sobs escaping through the gaps between her tightly clasped fingers over her face. She curled up in the corner of the sofa, her entire body trembling, as if drained of life, looking no different than a tattered rag doll discarded in the mud. Utterly pathetic. Ethan finally emerged from his stunned, lightning-struck state, like a drowned man resurfacing. The humiliation hit him like 1,000 red-hot needles piercing every nerve. He flinched. His face, initially pale, now flushed beet red like a pig's liver, veins bulging on his forehead and neck. He thrashed his arms wildly, almost knocking off his glasses, then lunged towards the door, screaming like a madman, "Close the door! Close it for me! Close it!" His voice was twisted and distorted by extreme anger and fear. But the two servers who had kicked the door open earlier stood like stone statues, unmoving, their faces expressionless. One of them, a burly figure, deliberately leaned his shoulder against the door, making Ethan's repeated shoves useless. The server's gaze was cold, even betraying a hint of thinly veiled contempt. "Get out of the way! Can't you hear me?" Ethan screamed, his voice deranged, his bloodshot eyes fixed on the two staff members like a desperate gambler lunging at his opponents. He reached out to push them away, but the burly server finally spoke. "Sir, please calm down." His voice was even, yet carried an irresistible authority. He took a half-step forward, his body a living wall, pushing Ethan back. Shaken by the imposing presence, even in his frenzy, Ethan dared not truly lash out. Just then, click. A volley of dazzling flashes erupted from all corners of the lounge, striking Ethan's already twisted face. The surrounding onlookers raised their phones, relentlessly documenting every humiliating moment of the esteemed banker. "Huh. Ethan let out a desperate, cornered animalistic cry. He abruptly raised his arm to shield his face, then recoiled as if electrocuted, stumbling backward and crashing hard into the coffee table behind him. His expensive suit was instantly smeared with cream and jam from the fruit platter, a sticky, disgusting mess. He was like a monkey, stripped bare and thrown into a bustling market, frantically trying to escape the ubiquitous camera lenses. Finally, he curled up in the corner of the sofa, just like Sophia, hands clutching his face, his entire body trembling even more violently than hers. The so-called honor of the banker elite had been ground to dust in that moment. The three other women in the VIP room also completely collapsed. Lena, the girl in the red dress, finally reacted, crying and screaming, "Stop recording. Please stop recording." She lunged to pull the thick curtains in the VIP room shut, only to find they were fixed decorative pieces, unmovable. She frantically jumped up, then tried to grab the drink the blonde had dropped, seemingly wanting to smash the recording lenses, but the blonde friend pushed her away. The blonde girl was completely frozen, her eyes staring blankly at the crowd and flashing lights outside, muttering incessantly, "It's over. It's really over." Her carefully styled hair was now a tangled mess. Her glittering sequin dress stained with watermelon juice, looking like a ragged garment. The short-haired girl reacted most directly, letting out a shriek before abruptly squatting down, hiding behind the sofa, only half of her trembling head visible. The slice of watermelon in her hand had vanished at some point. The VIP room was now a desperate island in a sea of people. Sobs, angry shouts, and helpless pleas mingled with the unceasing, happy breakup music blaring from the lobby. Interspersed with jeers and whistles, it all formed a tragic yet mockingly suffocating symphony. And I, Adrian, stood at the center of the chaos, feeling hundreds of eyes on me. Some were sympathetic, some admiring, but most were simply the excited gazes of a crowd watching a grand spectacle. A sensation of drinking the strongest liquor coursed through my veins, hot and numbing. This public execution had only just begun. I stood there, my gaze locked on the trembling couple in the VIP room, as if they were exhibits on a stage. Marcus was still hyped, waving his arms and spewing insults. Jake poured another beer, his eyes disturbingly bright. Daniel, still holding his phone, continued recording. The cold light from the screen reflected on Daniel's emotionless face, while his phone's lens relentlessly captured every detail in the VIP room, especially Ethan's distorted, pale face under the flashlights. The jeers and camera clicks around us grew louder, surging like a tide. Some even started clapping in rhythm, joining the chorus to the amplified music. "Happy breakup. Happy breakup." Each shouted phrase was like an invisible slap across the faces of the two in the VIP room, further deepening their humiliation. Just then, a man in a flashy floral shirt with slick back hair, looking like a mid-level technician manager, along with a burly man in a security uniform, though clearly a hired thug, hurriedly pushed through the crowd towards the VIP room door. Wiping sweat from his brow, the floral shirtman yelled at the two servers blocking the door. "What are you doing? Close the door. Turn off the screen. Are you trying to start a riot?" The burly men behind him also began to push forward. The two servers remained still, only reflexively glancing towards our table. Daniel didn't even lift his eyes, his finger lightly stroking his phone screen a few times. Almost simultaneously, a crisp ding sounded from the floral shirt manager's pocket. In the noisy environment, the sound wasn't particularly loud, but it was as if someone had pressed a pause button. He instantly froze, fumbling for his phone. As soon as he saw the message content, his expression stiffened. The urgency and aggression on his face were instantly replaced by an incredible fear and disbelief. He suddenly looked up, his gaze cutting through the crowd directly to our table, or more precisely, directly at Daniel. Daniel, still sitting calmly, raised his chin slightly, his eyes as placid as a lake. The floral shirt manager's facial muscles twitched, his expression torn as if biting a stone. He stared at his phone, then at Daniel, then back at the people in the VIP room and the completely out-of-control scene before him. After a few seconds of internal struggle, his shoulders slumped, as if all life had been drained from him. He bowed his head, giving a difficult nod towards his phone screen, then waved his hand, signaling his men to retreat. He dared not interfere further. The burly men exchanged confused glances but obediently retreated to a dark corner. The floral shirt manager, like a scared chick, tucked his neck and quietly slunk away, not daring to glance at the VIP room again. That silent confrontation was clearly witnessed by the surrounding crowd. The already boisterous whispers now flared up with a new mix of awe and speculation. "Oh my God, the manager just gave up. Did you see that? Who are those guys at that table? Just a look made security retreat. They messed with the wrong people. That guy Ethan really dug his own grave. Serves him right for cheating on someone's husband." These whispers, like tiny poison needles, pricked Ethan's ears through the gap in his hands covering his face. His bloodshot eyes stared intently at the pathetic retreat of the floral shirt manager, then snapped towards us, specifically towards Daniel's calm face. In his eyes, fear and humiliation morphed into a profound despair and heavy resentment. His body began to tremble violently again. "Ah!" Ethan suddenly roared like a wild beast, then sprang up from the sofa like a crazed animal, his eyes bloodshot, completely losing his reason, and lunged directly towards the door. He wanted to escape this hell, wanted to tear apart the crowd photographing and filming him like a joke. "Block him!" Marcus yelled, grabbing an empty beer bottle from the table and rushing forward. The two servers reacted even faster. The burly one, who had been blocking the door, his eyes cold, waited until Ethan was only a meter away, then suddenly spun around, simultaneously unleashing a lightning-fast right kick. Thud. A clean, decisive sweep of the leg, and Ethan's momentum instantly vanished. Under inertia, he collapsed like a torn sack, his face hitting the marble floor in front of the VIP room door with a sickening crack. The heavy sound made everyone wince. Ethan lay prone on the floor, motionless. A few seconds later, he twitched slightly like a dying fish. Blood gushed from his nose, snaking across the expensive marble floor, spreading into a glaring red streak. His carefully styled hair was completely ruined, covered in dust. His glasses had flown off his face, shattered, their distorted frame lying abandoned not far away. He tried to push himself up, but his trembling arms couldn't support his body weight. After a brief silence, someone let out a faint chuckle, like a spark igniting dry straw. And then the entire lobby erupted into a roaring wave of laughter, full of mockery, contempt, and schadenfreude, as if watching a circus monkey. "Ha ha!" He fell face first like a dog eating dirt. "Oh my God, is this the banker elite? Is that all he's got? Great pose. Hurry, take pictures. Get director Ethan's new look." Flashlights began to strobe relentlessly, like a daytime lightning storm, shining directly on the pool of nosebleed and the writhing figure on the cold floor. Sophia was stunned by this sudden turn of events, forgetting to cry. She stared blankly at Ethan, sprawled on the ground like a dead dog, her eyes vacant, as if her last shred of soul had been drained. I stood there, watching it all coldly. Ethan's pathetic state stirred no pity in me. Only one thing remained in my heart, a cold, hard confirmation. He was finished. His face, his dignity, and his entire future had been trampled the moment he fell to the floor, shattered along with his broken glasses. The effectiveness of this public execution far exceeded my expectations. The reverberating laughter still echoed in the lobby, like hundreds of coarse hands tearing away at every last remnant of dignity from the adulterous couple in the VIP room. Ethan, like a dog with its tendons severed, lay flattened on the cold marble, blood staining the floor beneath him like a chilling red ink blot. He thrashed a few times in vain, then gave up, burying his face in his arm, his entire body trembling with ultimate humiliation. From his throat came muffled sounds like a wild animal in chains. Sophia sat numbly on the sofa, her eyes empty, staring at the contorted figure by the door like a hollowed-out corpse. The "Happy Breakup" song played on tirelessly, its cheerful melody containing invisible cruelty. Just then, the blonde girl in the sequin dress, who had shrieked earlier in the room, seemingly unable to bear the immense psychological shock any longer, suddenly lunged from behind the sofa. Tears still streaked her face, but her eyes were wild, reckless. She stumbled towards the door, completely oblivious to Ethan lying crumpled on the floor, and yelled at the crowd outside. "It has nothing to do with us. Truly nothing. It was Sophia who dragged Ethan here. She said her husband was useless, that he didn't understand her at all. She and Ethan had been seeing each other for a long time. They even said tonight they would." The latter part of her sentence was swallowed by the music and laughter, but the key phrases rang clear. "Shut up, you bitch." Sophia, as if struck by a poisoned needle, instantly snapped out of her stupor, screaming pathetically, her voice distorted. She struggled and lunged towards the door, intending to cover the blonde girl's mouth, but her legs gave out. Her high heel twisted. Crash. She fell sprawling onto the floor, only half a meter from Ethan, equally pathetic. The blonde girl, startled by the fall, initially flinched and intended to shut up. But then, like a cornered animal, she pointed at Sophia on the ground and continued to scream. It was her. She initiated everything. Ethan was just confused for a moment. Please stop recording. Stop. She shrieked, waving her arms wildly, trying to block the constantly aiming camera lenses. The crude, almost comical spectacle of their mutual destruction only further exhilarated the crowd. Did you hear that? Her own sister just called her husband useless. Confused for a moment, and they were clutching each other like that. What a load of crap. Whistles, cheers, malicious comments, flashing camera lights, all slammed into the VIP room like waves, battering the wreckage of their dignity and character. Capture it. Let everyone get a good look at this cheating pair and their backstabbing friend. Jeers, insults, and rapid camera clicks surged like breaking waves. The relentless flashes swept across Sophia's pale, soulless face, across the blonde girl's frantic, accusing expression, and finally illuminated the bloody, dust-covered back of Ethan's head. Marcus slapped his thigh repeatedly, laughing until tears streamed down his face. Ha ha, dog eat dog. This is absolutely incredible. Jake also grinned, opening another beer and chugging it down. Daniel held his phone steadily, the lens sweeping across Ethan's sprawled body, Sophia's collapse, the blonde girl angrily placing blame, and finally resting on the two other women, pale as ghosts, hiding behind the sofa. Daniel's finger lightly touched the screen, clearly saving or sending something. I watched the tragic comedy unfold, unmoved. Sophia's "my husband is useless" comment was like a cold pin driven into my eardrum. Yet it stirred no ripple within me. The mutual tearing apart of traitors only made this execution more deliciously perfect. The moment had come. I lifted the microphone again, my voice sharp as a knife, tearing through the air, overpowering all laughter and noise. The boisterous lobby instantly quieted, the laughter and chatter quickly receding into faint murmurs. All eyes turned to me once more, filled with excitement and anticipation. I ignored them all. My gaze, cold as steel, fixed on the crumpled shadow by the VIP room door. Ethan, perhaps he felt that malevolent stare. His entire body trembled violently, and he bent his head even lower. Ethan, my voice, amplified by the microphone, resonated throughout the lobby, clear and icy as frozen water, utterly devoid of human warmth. Look up. The figure sprawled on the floor suddenly stiffened. Look up. I emphasized each word, each syllable like a sledgehammer. Under the gaze of hundreds of eyes, through dozens of recording phone lenses, Ethan slowly, excruciatingly slowly, and with immense difficulty, lifted his stone-heavy head. His face was a wreck, swollen nose, dried blood caked beneath it, covered in dust, forehead scraped and bleeding. His eyes, no longer hidden by glasses, were bloodshot, pupils contracted to an extreme degree by fear and humiliation. A hazy, dying gaze like a cornered animal caught in headlights. The image of the banker elite he had painstakingly built was now nothing but a pathetic, sordid ruin. Flashes lit up again, capturing this historic moment. I looked at him, the corner of my mouth curving into a smile utterly devoid of warmth. My next words, carried by the microphone, pierced directly into his ears and those of everyone present. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., in front of the bank. Make sure you're wearing your finest suit, Mr. Banker. Your director will personally open the door to kick you out. My words were like a bucket of cold water poured into a pot of boiling oil, causing the entire lounge to erupt. The director? That's going all out. Another public execution in front of the bank tomorrow. Quick, record this and post it. Tomorrow we need to get there early. Ethan is absolutely finished this time. Loses his job. Serves him right for cheating. The chatter, shouts, and gleeful laughter swirled into a sonic vortex, threatening to lift the roof. A flurry of phones rose high, capturing Ethan's face, now utterly devoid of soul, filled with despair, with not a glimmer of light left. His eyes were wide open, the last light in his pupils dimming like a weak candle in the wind. Then, poof, completely extinguished. He stared at me, his lips trembling, his throat emitting a gasping sound like a deflating tire. Ha ha. But he couldn't form another word. His expression was even more desperate than when he collapsed. The bank was his last bastion of dignity, his means of survival, and I was the one who had thrown open its gates, exposing him to the world. A non-human sob tore from his throat. His body twitched, his head lolled to the side, and he passed out. Ethan. Sophia shrieked, as if her heart was being ripped out. Crying, she crawled across the floor to him, embracing his limp body, shaking him desperately, in vain. I stared at the scene before me, my face expressionless. In my heart, an icy wasteland silently drifted by. This was only the beginning. Let's go. I lowered the microphone, my voice not loud, but clear enough for my 3 friends to hear. Marcus, still buzzing with excitement, mumbled, "Leaving already." This was just an appetizer, not even the main course. Jake also lingered, casting a wistful glance at the chaotic, battle-scarred VIP room. Daniel, however, had already put away his phone, calmly stating, "The climax is tomorrow." I was the first to turn and walk away, passing through the crowd that automatically parted to make way. As I passed, everyone's eyes held a mixture of awe, curiosity, and a subtle, unacknowledged fear. The 4 of us were like warriors who had just slain a dragon, exuding a cold resolve as we left the chaotic battlefield without looking back. Behind us were Sophia's utterly shattered, desperate sobs, the excited chatter of the crowd, the incessant flashes of cameras, and the still blaring, jarringly cheerful end of the breakup song. The autumn night wind carried a crisp chill, cooling my flushed face, bringing a sharp, sobering pain. I got into the car, closed the door, cutting off the last vestiges of the chaotic world outside. The car was utterly silent, save for the soft hum of the air conditioning. Marcus, in the passenger seat, rubbed his hands, his excitement still etched on his face. He turned to me, his voice incredulous. "Are you really going to the bank? Is that old director seriously going to listen to you?" I didn't answer, just pulled out my phone. The screen's light illuminated the dim car interior. I opened an encrypted folder where several documents lay dormant. My finger swiped lightly. I opened one, sharp scans of a property purchase agreement, bank transaction statements, accompanied by a few blurry but highly damaging screenshots. In the top corner was the recipient's email address, clearly the official suffix of the disciplinary inspection department at the headquarters of a major commercial bank in the city. The send time was before we left the club. I showed the phone screen to Marcus. He squinted for a few seconds, his eyes widening. Then he suddenly gasped, smacking his thigh. "Holy cow, you're a genius. How did you dig this up?" That guy, Ethan, using customer deposits to speculate on real estate, and with a female client, no less. This evidence is undeniable. Absolutely ruthless. His face was flushed with excitement. Jake and Daniel also leaned in to look. Jake let out a whistle, while Daniel just nodded slightly, as if it was all within his expectations. "Director Miller," I retracted the screen and the light extinguished, plunging the car back into darkness. I leaned back in my seat, closed my eyes, my voice dry, as if I had just cleaned up a junkyard, yet still chillingly cold. He'll have a lot to deal with tomorrow. The car started quietly, merging into the bustling city traffic. Outside the window, neon lights flashed past like illusions, constantly shifting, like an absurd play that never ended. The Starlight Lounge was now far behind, but I knew another stage had been set, waiting for its lead actors to appear. The next morning, at 8:50 a.m., the imposing glass-fronted bank building in the city center shimmered even more splendidly in the early light. The massive sign outside proclaimed its wealth and prestige. During rush hour, smartly dressed employees hurriedly swiped their cards, entering through the revolving doors. On the sidewalk, figures who appeared to be waiting for a ride or someone were, in fact, constantly glancing towards the bank's main entrance, their eyes betraying poorly concealed excitement and burning curiosity. Marcus, Jake, Daniel, and I sat inside a coffee shop across the street. Behind a large glass window, 4 steaming cups of coffee sat untouched on our table. Our gazes, like 4 cold spears, pierced through the glass, locked onto that large revolving door. At 8:58, a dark Audi A6L slowly pulled up directly in front of the bank. The driver stepped out, walked around to open the rear door, and a portly middle-aged man in a high-end dark gray suit, his slicked hair not a single strand out of place, slowly emerged. His expression was profoundly unpleasant, so grim it seemed to drip with gloom. Eyebrows furrowed, lips pressed into a thin line. His entire demeanor exuded the oppressive pressure of a storm before a mountain, suffocatingly tense. He was Director Miller, the branch manager of the bank. After getting out of the car, he didn't walk straight into the bank as usual. Instead, he stood before the entrance as if waiting for someone. His eagle-sharp eyes swept across all directions, scrutinizing every face. Behind him, a male secretary, also looking grave, clutched a tablet. The crowd waiting for rides outside the bank immediately came alive, subtly adjusting their positions, phones already discreetly aimed, lenses quietly open. The air instantly became taut as a bowstring. At 8:59, a taxi stopped at the street corner. The door opened, and a man in a crumpled suit, disheveled hair, and several band-aids on his face stumbled out. It was Ethan. He looked like he hadn't slept all night. Eyes sunken, bloodshot, his face gray as a corpse. His suit, once a symbol of his status and dignity, was now wrinkled like pickled greens. His tie askew, his shirt collar rumpled. Ethan kept his head bowed, his steps heavy like a soulless corpse. Each footfall trembling, difficult, as if he were treading on hot coals. He dared not look up, only stared at the small patch of ground directly in front of his feet. No one spoke. Everyone held their breath. Countless eyes, countless phone lenses, zoomed in silently, all focused on Ethan, who was dragging himself step by step towards the bank's main entrance. Finally, he saw Director Miller standing at the door, his face as hard as frozen iron. Ethan's body instantly stiffened, as if struck by a paralyzing spell, freezing him in place. He instinctively wanted to turn and flee, but his rigid body wouldn't budge. Extreme fear instantly choked his throat, making him almost unable to breathe. Director Miller had also seen him. His already dark expression grew even darker upon seeing Ethan's pathetic state. A furious fire flared in his eyes, on the verge of erupting. But deep within, there was also a profound humiliation from being publicly slapped in the face before everyone. He took a deep breath, as if exerting all his strength to suppress the volcano ready to explode within him. At 9 o'clock, the minute hand touched the mark. Director Miller remained stationary, not entering the bank as usual, nor speaking to anyone. He simply stood there before everyone, under dozens of secretly recording lenses. His eyes, like two red-hot iron rods, clamped onto Ethan. That gaze was filled with ultimate disappointment, bone-chilling anger, and an undeniable, openly displayed contempt, no longer concealed. In those eyes, Ethan was no longer his capable assistant, but merely a pile of foul garbage to be immediately discarded. The silent public humiliation from his direct superior was 100 times more cruel than any verbal reprimand. Ethan's body began to tremble violently. He couldn't bear the weight of that gaze. His legs gave way, his knees buckling. Thump. He collapsed, kneeling on the cold marble steps right in front of the bank. He bowed his head low, his shoulders trembling violently, emitting choked, desperate sobs like a beaten dog with a broken spine, with nowhere left to hide. Right under the bank's awning, before the administrative director, amidst myriad lenses recording the moment, he completely crumbled. Click. A camera flash exploded, burning the air. Instantly, flashes blinked incessantly. Passers-by no longer bothered to pretend, raising their phones, frantically recording the scene of Ethan kneeling and Director Miller's iron face. Wow. Worth it. Did you get it? Quick, send it to the group. That look from Director Miller, it cuts without drawing blood. Ethan is ruined. He's definitely lost his job. Just lost his job. If this video goes viral, he's finished in the financial world too. The chatter erupted like a tide. Director Miller still silently watched Ethan, who had once been his capable right-hand man, now kneeling, so broken he was barely human. His facial muscles twitched violently, the last spark of compassion in his eyes replaced by a layer of icy coldness. He didn't bother to glance at Ethan again, as if merely looking would defile him. Abruptly turning, he sternly barked at his secretary behind him. Notify HR immediately. Initiate termination procedures. Call security. Drag this thing away from me. Don't let it dirty the bank entrance. His voice wasn't loud, but it resonated clearly in the ears of everyone nearby. Having said that, Director Miller, radiating an aura of chilling authority, strode into the bank's revolving door without looking back, disappearing from view. The secretary immediately pulled out his walkie-talkie, quickly whispering instructions. Soon, 2 uniformed security guards emerged from inside, their faces expressionless. They didn't even bother to glance at the devastated Ethan sprawled on the ground, just coldly grabbed one of his arms each, roughly pulling him up as if handling a sack of waste, without the slightest gentleness. Ethan didn't resist. Like a soulless, broken puppet, his head bowed, his legs dragging on the ground. Under countless phone lenses and curious eyes, the 2 guards dragged him to an unmarked car parked at the curb. The car door opened, and Ethan was roughly thrown into the back seat, no different from discarding a bag of refuse. The car quickly started, merged into traffic, and vanished around the street corner. Only an invisible, squalid scene remained on the bank steps, along with a group of gleefully excited people sharing videos. In the coffee shop, Marcus chugged a mouthful of cold coffee, then wiped his mouth, beaming. That scumbag is truly done for. Let's see how he can act smug now. Jake was glued to his phone, chuckling. The video's spreading like wildfire. All the groups are blowing up. Banker Elite kneels crying, dragged away by security. That headline is a magnet. Daniel slowly put down his coffee cup, looked at me, and said, "What about Sophia?" I picked up my phone. The screen lit up with a missed call I had just rejected. It was Sophia, along with a dozen unread messages. Opening them, they were all from her. "My love, I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. Please forgive me this once. It was all Ethan's seduction. He forced me. I saw the video. I know you're angry. Can we come home? I'll listen to you. I beg you. Pick up the phone. Let's talk properly. We had so many years together. Must you be so heartless? Do you really want to destroy me? Tell me. What do you want?" The last few messages had turned into mournful cries mixed with panic and resentment. I looked at those lines, my heart stirring not a single ripple of emotion. Betrayal was like a poisoned dagger. Once plunged in, the wound never heals, eternally festering. I silently exited the message interface, opened my contacts, found a name saved as Mr. Thorne, and dialed. "Mr. Thorne, it's me." My voice was as calm as an unruffled lake. "Is everything ready?" "Yes, Mr. Adrian," Mr. Thorne's composed, professional voice replied from the other end. "Divorce papers, asset distribution list, draft complaint with preliminary details of the female party's potential asset concealment behavior as you provided, copies of the complaint regarding the female party's serious fault, along with the special notification letter you requested, are all ready to be sent." "Good." I looked up, my gaze piercing through the coffee shop window, as if seeing the end of a story about to be shattered beyond repair. "You have the address. Send them immediately." "Understood. I will send them right away." The call ended. The bright sunlight outside reflected intensely off the glittering bank glass, almost blinding. On the road, cars still flowed endlessly. The sound of people bustling. The world continued its everyday hustle and bustle. But I knew that for some, since last night, their world had collapsed and would never have the chance to be rebuilt. The car pulled up to the apartment building that was once called home. Familiar jacaranda trees cast dappled shadows on the sunny ground, and the flower beds full of recklessly blooming roses. I pushed open the car door, my foot hitting the cold, hard cement with a dull thud. Marcus, Jake, and Daniel followed me like a silent wall. Upstairs, the key turning in the lock, then the creak of the door opening, echoed clearly in the quiet hallway. Stepping into the living room, I saw a scene of chaos. Pillows strewn about, the coffee table covered with empty wine bottles and crumpled tissues. Sophia was curled up in a corner of the sofa like a rain-soaked bird. She was still wearing the same miserable ivory lace dress from last night, now wrinkled and dirty, sticking to her body. Her hair oily and disheveled, matted to her face. Her eyes sunken and red like rotten peaches. Hearing the door open, she flinched, looked up, saw me, and her vacant eyes flared with a final flicker of light, a mix of despair and an aggressive, desperate plea. "My love," she choked, then tried to stand, but her weak legs gave out, and she sank back, her voice hoarse and tearful. Adrian, you're finally back. I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. Please forgive me. Can we start over? Tears streamed down her cheeks, smearing her face. I no longer looked at her, my gaze settling on the thick craft paper envelope with the prominent red seal of the law firm in the middle of the room. Beside it was an unmarked white envelope. Mr. Thorne worked fast. I walked over, picked up the heavy paper envelope, moved to the sofa in front of her, saying nothing, and gently dropped it, creating a dull thump. She flinched, her horrified gaze fixed on the bright red seal. What? What is this? Her voice trembled, tinged with a bad premonition. Sign it, and I'll tell you, I said slowly. You have 3 days to clear your things out. My voice was cold, utterly devoid of emotion. Her face suddenly paled, utterly drained of color. She looked at me in disbelief. Divorce? You want to divorce me just for one mistake? Adrian, after a lifetime of marriage, how can you be so cruel? She lunged forward, wanting to grab my arm. I sidestepped easily, avoiding her tear-stained hand and her soiled dress. She missed my sleeve and collapsed onto the carpet in front of the sofa. One mistake? I asked coldly. When you were passionately embracing another man, did you ever think of your husband? When you called your husband useless, where were you then? My voice wasn't loud, but each word was like a blade plunged directly into her ear. Her body trembled violently. She looked up, clutching at a desperate final plea. It's also your fault. You only cared about your worthless job. You never cared about me. What did you ever give me? Ethan at least indulged me, bought me things. All you ever gave me was that damn salary. You're useless. You've ruined me. Ruined everything about me. She shrieked hysterically like someone losing their mind. Marcus frowned, listening. Jake sighed softly, while Daniel's face remained stone-cold and expressionless. I looked at her frantic state, my heart completely empty. I bent down and picked up the small white envelope from the coffee table, placing it before her as if discarding a glowing hot coal. Her threatening, accusing screams abruptly cut off, replaced by a fearful gaze. She stared at the white envelope for a long time, then tremblingly picked it up, tore open the flap, and pulled out a stack of papers. One glance, and her entire body stiffened, her eyes fixed on the contents. Her pupils dilated as if to burst, filled with extreme horror and utter shock. No, no, this can't be, she screamed, her voice sharp as a knife, piercing my eardrums. It was a scream of ultimate despair, as if the end of the world was upon them. False. Adrian, you faked this. You're framing me. She waved the papers wildly like a madwoman. The papers were copies of bank account statements and transfer receipts, clearly showing that over the past 6 months, numerous large sums of money from her joint account and her secret personal account had flowed into Ethan's personal account. The memo sections clearly stated loan for house purchase, investment, and so on. The deficits from customer deposits that Ethan had misused, along with a series of recent financial shuffling, perfectly matched these transfers. While not direct evidence of embezzlement of public funds, it was enough to construct a damning chain of clues sufficient to implicate her with the bank and the police, plunging her into an endless spiral of trouble. If Ethan were forced to confess, the consequences would be unimaginable. She was still screaming. Adrian, you faked this. But I only looked at her shattered face, contorted with fear, and the corner of my mouth curved into a cold, knife-sharp smile. You can take this to the police or to anyone. I paused for a beat, my voice cold as toxic ice water. Just wait. The disciplinary committee will come to invite him for a chat. Thump. The papers fell silently to the floor, scattering. Sophia, as if her spine had been removed, collapsed limply onto the carpet, trembling like a soft noodle, her sunken eyes devoid of life, holding only boundless fear and despair. All her previous resentment and accusations vanished without a trace, leaving only desperate sobs like a freezing animal. I want the signed divorce papers, I said, my voice as cold and unwavering as ice. I'll give them to Mr. Thorne. 3 days. I don't want to see you or anything of yours here anymore. I glanced at her one last time, my eyes seeing her as a final drop of water dissolving into nothingness, erased from the orbit of my life. Then I turned without a single regret. Adrian, please. Her trembling voice, mixed with desperate sobs, echoed from behind, pleading for the last fragments of faith. But I didn't turn back. Marcus, Jake, and Daniel followed me, quietly leaving the apartment. The door behind us slowly closed, sealing off the crying and disgusting despair. Sunlight streamed through the hallway window, tiny dust motes dancing in the light. I took a deep breath of the fresh air, now devoid of her scent. My lungs felt cold. From inside the room came the sound of papers being thrown against a wall and Sophia's soul-shattering cries echoing in the quiet space. I stood in the faint sunlight on the apartment building steps, silently watching the city before me gradually awaken. The sound of car horns, the hurried footsteps of early commuters. The bustling rhythm of life continued as if no chaotic night had ever occurred. But for me, today was the beginning of a different life. Beside me, Marcus stretched, muttering something about breakfast. Jake pulled out a cigarette but didn't light it, just held it in the corner of his mouth, his gaze distant. Daniel remained silent as usual, his sharp eyes seeming to have seen through all the absurdities of the world. We didn't need to say anything, for everything had ended, and everything had just begun. I pulled out my phone, deleted Sophia's last contact. No more messages, no more missed calls, nothing to remember. She was once the woman I loved, the woman I trusted, but she was also the one who had personally buried it all. I didn't hate her, because ultimately what I felt for her wasn't hatred, but a complete severance. Life sometimes doesn't need swords to end a relationship. Just a cold turn of the back is enough. I walked away, walked out of the house once called home, out of a past that once made me feel helpless. But no, I wasn't helpless. I was just patient. And today, that patience had run out. Ahead was the light of freedom. It might still be dark. It might still be unclear. But I knew that from this moment on, I lived for myself. No longer bearing the burden of complications. No longer bowing my head to hurtful words. There was only me, Adrian, and the path I would take. Straight-backed, head held high, never looking back. Because I knew what was rotten could not be saved. And I was alive again.